The race had already started, and the smallest runner was still tying his shoe. Children sprinted past him in a blur of dust and laughter. Some people in the crowd chuckled. Others shook their heads. From the sidelines, someone whispered, "He's already lost," but the boy didn't run away. He stood up, tightened the laces, took a deep breath, and started running anyway. His name was Daniel. Daniel was 12 years old, skinny, quiet, and usually the last person anyone expected to win anything. He lived in a small neighborhood where the streets were always busy and opportunities were often scarce. His clothes were simple, his sneakers worn at the edges, and his confidence fragile. But Daniel had something most people couldn't see, a stubborn spark inside him. Every morning before school, while the city was still half asleep, Daniel would run through the dusty roads behind his house. No cheering crowd, no finish line ribbon, just the rhythm of his breathing and the quiet promise he whispered to himself, "One day, I will be strong enough." But Daniel's journey wasn't easy. At school, he was often overlooked. During sports class, he was usually picked last. When the other kids played football or basketball, Daniel struggled to keep up. Some laughed when he tripped. Others rolled their eyes when he asked for another chance. "Just sit this one out." They would say, those words hurt more than any fall, but Daniel kept showing up. He practiced. After school, when everyone else had gone home, he ran in the rain. He ran when his legs burned and his lungs screamed for air. Sometimes he fell, sometimes he limped home with scraped knees, and sometimes he cried when no one could see him. Still, every morning, he laced up those same worn sneakers because deep down, Daniel believed something powerful. Losing doesn't mean you stop, it means you try again. One day, the school announced a community race. It wasn't just any race, it was the biggest one of the year. Students from several schools would compete, and the winner would receive a medal and a scholarship opportunity for sports training. Everyone was excited, except Daniel. He knew the other runners were faster, stronger, more experienced. Some had professional trainers. Some had brand new running shoes that looked like they belonged in the Olympics. Daniel had none of that. The night before the race, he sat quietly outside his house, staring at his old sneakers. "What if they laugh again?" he whispered. For a moment, fear wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. Maybe he should stay home. Maybe he should pretend to be sick. Maybe, but then he remembered every early morning run, every fall, every moment he chose to keep going, and something inside him spoke louder than the fear. Run anyway. The next morning, Daniel stood at the starting line with dozens of other runners. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Parents held cameras, teachers shouted encouragement. Daniel felt his heart pounding. "You don't belong here," the voice of doubt whispered. But another voice answered quietly, "Maybe I do." The whistle blew. The runners exploded forward. Daniel stumbled slightly as others rushed past him. Within seconds, he was near the back of the pack. Just like always. The crowd's cheers faded behind him as the faster runners pulled ahead. Dust kicked into the air. His legs felt heavy. His breathing grew uneven. Halfway through the race, something unexpected happened. One of the fastest runners tripped and fell hard on the track. The boy lay there, clutching his ankle in pain while the other runners rushed past. Daniel slowed down. He could keep running. He could finally move ahead. For a split second, victory flashed in his mind. But then he looked at the boy on the ground, and Daniel made a decision that surprised even himself. He stopped. He knelt beside the fallen runner and helped him sit up. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked. The boy nodded weakly. Daniel helped him to the side of the track where teachers rushed over to assist. By the time Daniel returned to the race, nearly everyone had passed him. He was last. But something inside him felt lighter. So Daniel kept running, not for the medal, not for the crowd, but because quitting was never who he was. Step after step, he pushed forward, his legs trembled, his chest burned. But he kept moving until finally, the finish line appeared. The crowd noticed him approaching. Alone, at first there was silence, then someone started clapping. Another person joined, then another, until the entire crowd was cheering not for the winner who had already finished, but for the boy who refused to give up. Daniel crossed the finish line with sweat on his face and tears in his eyes. He didn't win the race. But that day, something far greater happened. The teachers, parents, and race organizers had seen everything. They saw the moment Daniel chose kindness over victory. They saw his determination, his courage, and the quiet strength that had carried him to the end. Later that afternoon, the head organizer walked onto the stage holding a special medal. This medal, she announced, is for the runner who showed the true spirit of this race. She called Daniel's name. The crowd erupted. Because sometimes winning isn't about being the fastest. Sometimes winning means getting up every time life knocks you down. Sometimes winning means helping others even when it costs you something. And sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to give up. Daniel walked home that evening with the medal around his neck and his old sneakers still covered in dust. But for the first time in his life, he realized something important. He had never been the weakest runner. He had always been the strongest, and strength, as it turns out, isn't measured by speed. It's measured by heart. If this story inspired you, follow for more powerful stories about courage, kindness, and the strength we all carry inside.